All right. I think we're live. Hi, Martin.
Hey,
Hey.
hi.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, good.
Thank you for joining us today for a Tama Talk. We're super happy to have you. I will introduce you very briefly to our digital public, and then let you take it from there. So Martin is going to give a talk today titled Designing Systems, and he's going to share some insights into his work and process, working across graphic design, type, editorial design, as well as some insights he's learned along the way surrounding systems and how systems have influenced not only his way of working, but also his way of thinking. Martin is an educator, designer, researcher with a focus on flexible visual systems. He has a learning platform, as well as a book that teaches both theoretical and practical, takes a theoretical and a practical approach to teaching about systems and how to apply it to your work. He also co-runs a studio, 2points.net, as well as coding systems, and as well, you are a design lead at Dark Media Lab. Is that a good summary, more or less?
Yeah, that's a perfect summary.
Super.
I mean, yeah.
All right. I will let you take it from here. Martin is going to give a more or less 30-minute or so presentation, and there'll be time afterwards for question answers. So if anybody has questions, you can leave it in the chat. So Martin?
Yes. Thank you. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I hope I make it in 30 minutes. I have lots of slides, so I try to make it quick, but I would love to answer questions afterwards. So anything, just write down and then please ask me later. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Let's go. Yeah, I'm Martin, as you know. I do lots of different things. The learn, teach, apply has become my motive in everything that I'm doing. So I'm always learning, I'm always teaching, and I'm always applying, and I'm doing lots of things. And as you already perfectly summarized, Sonia, I'm co-founder of 2points.net, co-founder of Coding Systems. I'm a professor at the University of Cooperative Education. I'm the conversational design lead at the NGO Dark Matter Labs. I teach at different master degrees and bachelor degrees of Elisava, and I'm the founder of Flexible Systems and 1,000 little things besides. I'm nothing I'm really doing alone because I don't like to work alone. I love working with other people. So 2points.net is also Lupi Asensio and Elisava, and our type design work for Fette Letters, the Type Foundry, is with Donald Rose and Donald Bakeman. I'm doing at Dark Matter Labs Live Ennobling Design with Emily Harris, work a lot with Indy Johar, with Tim, who you have seen last week. We're doing coding systems. We also teach together, and we write a book and discuss almost daily, on a daily basis, various subjects that concern us, and so on. So yeah, love to work with other people. This is brings me a lot of joy. In everything that I have seen before, all the different kinds of things I'm doing, it's always about systems, but the various aspects. Systems is such a huge subject that I'm never getting tired of them. I'm doing systems for visual identities. These are just some examples of a motion identity for the Night of the Museums of Barcelona, the visual identity for a tech magazine. This is for the when Spain was the guest of honor of the Frankfurt Book Fair. doing systems for editorial design. At 2 points, we designed, I think it must be already like 60 or 70 books in the 20 years that we exist. Many also as authors, not as many, but also almost 30 books as authors or editors. This is On the Road to Variable. This is my book, Flexible Visual Systems. And a new one that was just published, released last week. It's called the Flexible Visual Systems Atlas, which shows flexible visual identities from all over the world. I'm also designing type. This is something that I very much enjoy, to design type and to teach type design, but in a very systemic way. So this is, for example, something that we did for, or I did for ESPN, quite a big variable font with lots of possibilities to play with for Enscape. Also for ESPN, another font. For Nike, some letterings. Yeah, this is as well for Nike. You can have a look at 2points.net as well to see them all. In this talk, I'm going to focus on the 7 things that I learned from systems. So you can also learn something from this lecture, and it's not just a portfolio lecture. So why systems? Why did I focus on systems? And the first reason is that systems make us efficient. So being a small studio, you have seen that 2points.net is just me and Lupi and Elio. In order to be able to make bigger jobs, we need a system, because once you have a system, you don't need to make everything yourself. You can also automate processes and make bigger projects. This is something that we did, for example, for Design for Social Innovation, which is a book about social innovation, and quite a thick book actually, with many case studies from social innovation design from around the world. And we got lots and lots of data for each of the case studies, and it would have taken us so much time if we would have manually designed data visualizations for each of the case studies. So what we did is we coded something to create these flowers that you see here, that would translate the different data types that we had into these drawings. Here you can see the system. So we have one visual language for the funding, for example. So you could see how much funding they got, what type of funding they got, how many mediums of change were used, how many designers were participating in the project. And then we had to do nothing else than just use the data that we got from the Excel tables and generated automatically all of these different kinds of flowers, which would represent then visually each of the case studies. And here you can see an overview in one spread. And here you can see how one of the case studies would start. On the left, you see this drawing, and then underneath some data. And here you see some of them together and how different they are depending on the kind of project. The second thing about systems, systems make us flexible. So before, I'm doing this for quite a while, and in the beginning I always had to fight our clients, or sometimes as well our students, who thought that when you design a visual identity, you always have to start with a logo. And I was saying, no, the logo is actually something that you just generate from the system. And if you start with a logo, then you will be forced always just to stick the logo on the different deliverables instead of being able to responsively react to each of the deliverables, which is quite inefficient. No, it's something that you should be free to choose, to be flexible about. So I gave them always, when I still had to, I'm saying I had to, because now it's actually so many people got used to this idea of designing identity systems instead of logo-centric identities. But when I still had to fight it, I had to explain them that a logo is actually like a message, like one singular message that represents the entity you're designing for, the company or the institution or the organization, while designing a system is more like a language. And then you can formulate different kinds of messages depending on the person that you're talking to, or the context you're talking in. Like, if you don't have much time, then your message will be brief. If you have more time, so if you're on a platform where you are allowed to express yourself and have more space or more time or whatever, you can be more, you can have longer messages and more in-depth messages, no? But starting already with a very short and brief message and then going to a platform that allows you to be more eloquent is just the wrong way of doing it. You will, look pretty dumb if you have actually the space to say something and then you can't because you just have a logo. I sometimes get then as well this question of, but when I get a job, most of the companies already have a logo. So what should I do then with this logo? So I tell them, start from scratch. And obviously you can't start from scratch because they invest a lot of time and money in making this identity recognizable, so and identifiable. So what every company who started in the last century or beginning of this century, but then wants to transform into something a bit more flexible and responsive, had to do is trying to find ways how to become flexible. And this is something that we had to do for the ADI Awards, which is an industrial design award from Barcelona. And they started with one singular symbol, this delta sign you can see here from 1961. André Ricard, who's a famous industrial designer from Spain, designed it and used it for this organization. And then over the years, they transformed it into a triangle. In the second row, what you can see here is that they used the symbol, the logo for the organization as well as a symbol or logo for the award, the Delta Award. And the third line you can see here that they used a circle for the Medailles Award. And then in this brief, they asked us not just to make a consistent language for these three symbols, but also invent a new one, for a new award. And we thought it would be just logical to, if we have three edges and then six, then the next step should be 12. So what we did is we made the symbols consistent, and when the organization is communicating, it's a combination out of all of the different symbols from the different awards. But this is just another logo. I mean, it's consistent, but it's just a still logo. So what we did is we took the Futura as a base because I guess you know the Futura, and designed by Paul Renner, who's German, but the history of the font is quite interesting, and you can see a lot of use of Futura in the post-war in Spain, because the Tile Foundry, who published and produced back then, they had to use mobile type heavy fonts. It was difficult to produce fonts. They moved to Barcelona. So lots of print material was done with Futura. So we took this Futura as a base. We substituted the round shapes for the different symbols of the different awards, and did nothing else than just write with a font. And a font in itself is a typographic system, quite flexible, because you can type longer words, shorter words, sentences. You can make breaks so that would fit the format. You cut quite flexible with a font. And here you see some of the applications on the different deliverables. You can see as well that we stretched the font on different formats. We made pattern with them. We changed the colors from year to year. We wrote stuff in the book as well about it. So we come to the third point. Systems make us better. What does this mean? It is, initially I told you about that all of these different things I'm never doing them alone. I always do them with others, and it's much more fun. But I also think that we cannot know everything and do everything alone. We get better by working with others and improving our skills as well to work as a community or as a group together. And we always make use of this, and at 2 points, and especially in this project where Spain was the guest of honor of the Frankfurt Book Fair. Here you can see the identity, or part of it. No, you see here a wireframe S, which should represent Spain, and you see this shapes that are leaving the space, because we don't believe that creativity or culture can be just limited by geographical borders. That this is something that expands and flows and floats however it wants. You can't stop. It doesn't stop at a border. And here you can see some of the acrylics that we used here inside of these shapes. So Lupi designed these acrylic textures, because to us as well it represented the mix of digital and analog, represented as well the kind of books that we are reading today. It's not just paper books anymore, but a lot of people also read electronic books, or they listen to audiobooks. So it's not just the paper books anymore. We have the mix in between the digital and the analog. So I focused on the Cinema 4D animations, After Effects animations, and Lupi focused on different patterns that are just mapped on these 3 different types of animation: the metaball animation, the one that you have seen before with the different kinds of stones, and the fabric. And just by 3 different kinds of gestures, motion gestures, and I think 10 different acrylic patterns, we had so many different ways of expressing this brand, and so many different ways of designing these deliverables, that it was quite a flexible system. I'm just going to show you real quick some of the designs that we did here. So it was everywhere. It was like, you can see here the carpet, it's on the carpet, it's on the screens, it's in the different pavilions. One of the pavilions had 2,000 square meters. The photo call, another one here. This is the German president and the Spanish queen, and the furniture that we designed here. This kind of, it's I mean, it's not sausages. I mean, it would fit to Frankfurt, but it's not sausages. I don't know what it is. Yeah, here you see a bit more than the book that we designed. Of course, we had to design a book. We love designing books. And we had all these different kinds of backgrounds here. Okay, number 4. I'm not looking at the watch. I'm just going through my list. Systems are contextual. This is something important to understand, and I think once you realize that we have to communicate more contextual and not just responsively, like, you know, from websites where your design is adapting to the different dimensions of your browser window or your devices, it will change design forever, because we can't, at least when I was educated in design, which was middle of the 90s, in the middle of the 90s, my department was called communication design. And most of the times we were taught the design is somewhere in between the sender and the receiver. So we are more like a vehicle transporting the message from one place to the other. But I don't think that this is true, and I don't think that this is really how communication works. And it's kind of evident now with social media that it's not just a one-way thing, communication. So if we understand that we are designing conversation with someone else, but as well with the design itself, because once we made something become real, it is also open to our own reflection. We will realize that we have to design in a completely different way. And this is something that we try to do for the Helsinki Design Lab, which was a Finnish design lab, but led by a couple of Americans and Finnish. And what they were trying to do is, in their words, not design thinking, but design doing. And they were calling it strategic design. So you think about design in a different way. You don't think about output, but outcome. So each thing that you designed is being seen in its context, where it's going to work or function or be used. So I'm just going to show you here some pictures of how the design was used, and they're not pretty pictures. You can see here that our design is quite wrinkled and used, but this is exactly what they were intended for. This is a workbook that the Helsinki Design Lab produced to inform people coming to their events about a certain subject. Here it's about aging. So people would get these books, they would really work with them, and you can see this here as well in this picture. Then they would meet in groups, like very diverse, from diverse backgrounds. People were joining these groups. So if the subject would have been education. You would get a minister for something, you would get a student, you would get a pupil, you would get a teacher, you would get a university teacher, a professor, you would get all kinds of different people that look at the same problem from a different perspective. And like this, you get a holistic view, systemic view of the problem, and are able to solve it in a much better problem because you're seeing much more sides of the same problem. We were producing digital stuff, but also a lot of printed stuff, because a book might seem like an old thing, but it's still, I think it's one of the best inventions, because it is not just that you can read it whenever or wherever you want to. You don't need internet for it. You don't need electricity for it. There can even come a government that tries to burn your book, but someone who loves your book is going to hide it somewhere. So it's indestructible. Doesn't matter what kind of catastrophe is happening. If I don't know, if we don't have internet anymore, the books will still be there. So, and it's not just about reading them. They are also, you identify with the content of a book, and you hold them up, like this guy here, to say, okay, I have been at this event. This is something that I'm reading right now. So it's something that I identify with, and maybe you read the same book and you want to talk to me. So it's much more. It's in strategic design language, you would call it a Trojan horse, because it's something that is in people's houses, in their shelves, and when you like the digital devices, you switch off and or you close them and you forget about them. But a book is just lying around somewhere. It's in, yeah, you will always see it. So it's and you will always be reminded of it. Another Trojan horse that we designed, actually with a real Trojan horse here, on illustration of it, is these posters, and the brief was just, okay, design something nice that people would hang up in their kitchen, and underneath we're going to put small text that people won't read in the beginning, but then later on, when they have it there in their flat, they will read it eventually, and then they will get our message. So we can get like this, we can get message across that would have been too dry for them to read or too boring for them to read through design. And I think this speaks of the power of design, actually. Number 5, systems show accountability. So again, back to my times when I was studying, we did not really think about our responsibility or our agency, if you want to express it in a different way. As designers, we were always seen as a service which brings the message from one place to the other. But actually, we become co-authors in this process, and we are all part of a system, and everyone or many are stakeholders in this system. And once we realize that everything is entangled, then we realized as well that we have power, and we should also show accountability for this power that we have. And this, I don't have anything to show here, because it's all the jobs that we did not do, because we thought, no, with this job we would have a obviously bad influence on this world. So this is where we said, no, we're not going to do this. Number 6, we're almost through. Systems can't be controlled. That sounds very weird for many, because systems sounds like something that is very rational, very complex, very something that we did and we understand, but it's quite the opposite is true, actually, to it. That's why in system theory, you speak of emerging systems, and you embrace emergence in contrast to planning, because you know anyway anything that you plan won't happen. What you have to do is you have to seed something, let it emerge, and then garden it. So it's another a Brian Eno comparison is like, don't be an architect, don't plan, be a gardener and seed, and then help your plants to grow. And the example that I brought about this is flexible visual systems as a project. In this example here, where you can see that everything had the same starting point and the machine is the same thing, but just by tiny different changes of air or the finger that released this thing, at the end you have very different outcomes. No, it's something that you can't really control. And I couldn't really control as well what is happening with flexible visual systems. It's like, at first, this is when 1998 until 2001 is when I was studying at the Royal Academy of Art, the KABK in The Hague. I actually didn't like much systems, and Peter Verblocker, my teacher, he was trying to teach me systems, and I was thought that no, I want to be free, I want to do poetry, I want to do art. So here you can see me and my friend Rowan doing a performance lecture about our artistic design projects. And I didn't really like systems, but then later on, when I started to work as a creative director at the Hort, 2001, 2005, and I did these kind of things, systems for music, for bands, for record labels, I realized that it's actually very helpful to design systems. But I did it in a very intuitive way. So this looks very structured, very grid-like, no? But it's actually, it doesn't make any sense at all. And I didn't really know what systems are. I did really intuitively. So what I did is, I went back to university. In this case, I moved then from Frankfurt to Barcelona, and then I started first a master degree and then a PhD in design research, and I was researching systems in graphic design or communication design, and even going back in typography to the Renaissance and before, to find or to look for systems and learn from systems, from historic systems, and develop my own model that would describe today's systems. What you can see here is my analysis of different authors from design books that try to make or analyze design and put it into systems. You can see here a model from Lucius Wong, from Le Borg, from Gerstner, from Bertin, from different kinds of authors. What they all had in common is that they were done in the pre-computer times. Only Karl Gerstner, he started then to get help from IBM to code his systems, but still with this kind of cards where you had to punch holes into to program. But they were not really thinking about the kinds of tools that we are using today. So you don't have interactivity, you don't have motion, you don't have coding. So I did my own model then to to take into account how we work today. And after I was done with the PhD, which took me 10 years to write the doctorate, and all of this time, I mean, you have to imagine that I was just sitting in my room writing this thesis and this dissertation, and it was so much work. I was already about to give up and leave it because it was so much work, and I didn't even know if people needed this. So, and I didn't show it to anyone. It was just like my tutor, and then maybe Lupi and some friends, but it was not really demand for it. So why do something for 10 years if there's no demand, no gain? I mean, I paid to study and to do the dissertation. So why keep on doing it? And then I finished and I was a bit frustrated because not as many people as I would have liked would have read it. And I thought, okay, I'm talking about something very important here, but nobody reads it. So what I did was I started working on a book that would make it a little bit more hands-on and tangible, the stuff that I found out in the dissertation. I asked people if they would help me to fund this book because I couldn't find any publisher. All the publishers that were saying, you should show projects of other studios, this is not interesting enough. And nobody really buys this kind of books anymore. So I did a Kickstarter and I just asked people to help me to finance this book. And I couldn't have planned for this. This was all just happened, you know? It's just like putting one stone on top of the other stone, week by week for 10 years, and then another 4 years. And then just reaching out to people to help you. And this all happened. And I couldn't have planned it. It's just, it happened, it merged. Here you can see some of the images of the book. Going to go a bit quickly through it. Yeah, it's quite a dense book. And then 2022, I 1 year after releasing the book, I regained some strength and I said, okay, yeah, this is quite a European book because nobody can really buy it outside of Europe. It's so hard to travel with physical objects. This is it costs a lot of money to send something so heavy to a different place in the world. So I said, okay, I got to keep on doing this and people like it, so I have to do something with it. And then this is when I started then Flexible Visual Systems, the website, and it's already over 1,000 patrons. And Lupi is busy right now translating all the courses to Spanish. And we have one Spanish publication in the pipeline, which is about to be released as a print-on-demand book. But it's like a very concise version of the book in Spanish. That, yeah, it's going to be easier to get in different continents. Then 2023, I had no idea that this is happening. Okay, so this is nothing that I did here. This is a tool coded by a studio in London. They have seen the book laying around there. So it's this is 2 years after the book has been released. They saw it in a bookstore in London and said, this is actually, I mean, I did the entire book in Illustrator, quite crazy, but it's, they looked at one page and they said, okay, this can be coded and this can become a tool. So they coded this tool and they used their knowledge combined with the knowledge of the book to convince their clients that the best way for them to design identities would be with coded tools and with these arguments that I gave in the book. You can go to the tools through my website. I made an interview with them where they explain the tool, how it works. And you can play around, you can download the images as well. Then something else which I find still crazy in a way, is people bought this book and they said, okay, I'm going to do my bachelor about this subject or my master degree subject. So this is all things that happening outside of my control, and I see it at the end, and it's like planting a seed, and then it's just people in Germany, Spain, Austria, Turkey, the UK, or USA are using this to further develop than the stuff that they have seen in the book, which is quite interesting. 2024, the Spanish version of the book came out. 2025, the Japanese version came out. This is my friend Tomoko who translated the book. And as mentioned before, now we did a book with lots of different case studies from all over the world using flexible systems. And I want to close this point 6 with a quote from Donella Meadows. The future can't be predicted, but it can be envisioned and brought lovingly into being. Systems can't be controlled, but they can be designed and redesigned. We can't search forward with certainty into a world of no surprises, but we can expect the surprises and learn from them and even profit from them. We can't impose our will upon a system. We can listen to what the system tells us and discover how its properties and our values can work together to bring forth something much better than could have ever be produced by our will alone. Number 7, and this is the end. It's a little bit of a downer now. Okay, you can see here systems make us efficient. Before was in green, now it's in red, orange. And it's true. Systems make us efficient. We can do much more if we have systems. We can do stuff that only big teams could do before in very small teams or even alone. And efficiency, this is the objective of efficiency, you know, is to be more energy efficient, to do more with less. So our energy efficiency has grown, which means we use less energy to produce $1 of the GDP, which is great. But there's something that's called the Jevons paradox. Jevons has been a guy who was studying this energy efficiency in the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain, and he recognized, or he wanted to research and analyze how a new steam engine would save energy, coal, and how it would actually help to produce cheaper, to produce with less coal consumption. But what happened is actually the opposite, because it was more energy efficient and not as much coal was used. The production with steam engines also got cheaper, which means that everybody was buying more steam engines and were producing more. And this is exactly what is also happening right now, is that we become more and more efficient, but we also use more and more stuff, which drives our energy consumption extremely high, and has resulted in now 6 boundaries, planetary boundaries crossed, which means that we spent too much. We have grown too much in some parts of the world, and we are not in balance with nature anymore. So we have an overconsumption, which is environmentally unsustainable. And this drawing here is a drawing that I made on the basis of the donut economy model, which is quite a smart model because it's so simple and easy to understand. So you have the donut and everything that should stay within the donut. This is where we have enough, and we don't have exceed the planetary boundaries. We don't have them crossed. We don't consume too much. We don't waste. We have too much waste. But it also has this hole in the middle, and it's often forgotten that this hole in the middle is equally important. We can also have too less. So there are countries that have grown too much, and there are countries that have grown too less, where you have socially unstable societies. So we need to try to keep in this enough middle. But this is not, energy is not the only problem. We have many different kinds of problems, and this is, and they're all interconnected with each other. And you talk of multipolar problems because one problem cannot be solved alone. It always has to be solved in simultaneously with other linked problems. So what we need to practice before we are able to solve these problems is first to see them. We have to practice our system literacy. And this is something that is, for me, the next logical step for flexible visual systems, is not just looking at the graphic design, but to use the skills of graphic design to make these systems visible, because once you can see them, you can dance with them, as Donna Meadows would say, and redesign them. So this is the invitation to join us at Flexible Visual Systems. And what we need to do is we need to stop just looking at other designers' stuff and learn to talk to non-designers, because as you have seen before, it's quite a diverse set of problems which needs quite a diverse set of skills. So what we are trying to do at Life Ennobling Design is to work with non-designers, economists, anyone who would like to join and is very relevant for these big changes, to join us and to work with us at Life Ennobling Design. A design definition which tries to use our traditional design skills basically with a different focus, with a different purpose, instead of generating more profit, to work purpose-driven. And that's it. I have no idea how long I talked. So thanks a lot, and muchas gracias to everyone. Let's keep in contact.
All right. Thank you, Martin, very much for the talk.
Oh, I'm looking at the watch now. I spoke like 50 minutes.
Well, we have about 10-15 minutes for questions. So
okay.
Thank you. We have already a few questions in the chat. I can get straight to it. One just came in. Are you messy in other areas of your life? And what do you do when you need a break from designing systems?
That's two very good questions. I like to work in messy environments. I don't know why, it's something that I'm used to. So I'm not messy, except my desktop is sometimes a bit messy. Today I tidied it up by putting it all in a folder that's called desktop. And how I like to take a break, I love cooking. So this is I think, apart from all the designy stuff, it's like my biggest joy is to cook and to eat. And yeah, but I cannot help myself and also see design in cooking. But that's, I guess this is what I enjoy most.
So you follow recipes and use measuring cups, or you do it more?
No, I never follow recipes. I get recipes from my students who are from all over, I mean, from every place from around the world. But then I always like to improvise. It's like it's for me, designing systems and cooking is more like jazz. You have like a structure, but then you also need to have times in which you improvise. Otherwise, it's not fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think this distinction between thinking in systems versus designing and creating systems is an interesting one, because the design process, there are moments when maybe it's going to inhibit your creativity if you're being too systematic in the way you're thinking. So I think, like, would you say that there's moments where you put aside any sort of system thinking in your design process? Or have you, yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it's another of the one of the lessons that I didn't like to hear as a student from Peter van Blokland, but he said anything can be turned into a system. So when I want to be creative, I don't think about the system at all, because I know that I can turn everything into a system. So I love to just work intuitively and use whatever tool I have in my hand. So use Cinema 4D to design fonts, or use paper to make motion identity systems, or just be creative about the way how you work. And then at the end, when you found something that you like and that you think works, just make one step back and then look at it and say, okay, what makes it consistent? So you have the thing that makes it consistent is going to be a constants of your system, and then think about what makes it flexible, and these are the variables then of your system. So I'm designing the systems after I have designed something that I like.
One question is on this note of, what is your process like when designing a system for a visual identity? How and where do you start the process?
First, I try to learn about the context in which the design is going to be used and what it's going to be used for. I have to get some kind of feeling for the spaces, but also the people I'm trying to connect with. And I'm doing a little benchmarking just to see the market and also the competitors and everything. But I just do this, to get an impression of who I'm dealing there with, and then I'm starting to think about visuals that could work for this entity. And what's interesting is, and this always comes up, is if you're used to design logocentric identities, then you're used to define the entity that you're designing for, and you try to press their, make a condensed version of their message, what's their purpose, what they want to do, and you try to visualize what they are about. But what's really different to designing systems is that you're not designing any message, you design a language. So you're trying to make sure you hit the right tone, but you don't want to spell out messages, because this is also what make this identity you wouldn't give it much longevity. You wouldn't be able then to transform it and let it evolve in the future. So you're just trying actually to have components and to have a system that allows you to formulate different kinds of messages and do different kinds of designs. But so which means as well that you're a little bit more abstract than you would be if you're designing a symbol or a logo.
Mm-hmm. So do you believe in mood boards for example? Like, is that something that you would do at the beginning of a process, or do you leave that out?
No, I leave that out, but this is for several reasons. I mean, I really enjoy this creative process of just by accident finding something and then developing it into something a bit more complex. While if I have a mood board, then and if I even have presented it to the clients, then they might be in love with the idea from someone else that didn't came out of the creative process. And it's very confusing for me to have such an alien object in the creative process. And what I've seen as well in bigger structures, in bigger studios, or in agencies, that this can also lead often to like copies of the original design. And it is, I mean, of course you can sell design like this, but it's I would like to create every time that are doing something new. I mean, like every project also has to be for me different. It's more enjoyable if it's different. If I don't know what's going to be the results. But I don't do really mood boards. For me, then they don't help me. It's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you also you have to tell your clients that they have to be open for something that they might not expect, because we don't know yet neither what's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely selling and presenting the idea is like almost sometimes more work than doing the design.
Yeah. Yes.
Another question is very nice explanation of the why for systems. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the what. How would you define a system? How do you determine if a system is a good one versus a bad one?
Okay, so I guess like systems applied in identities. No, we're talking about these kind of systems. So if it's a design system, then it's so sorry, what was the question? The what? I explained
how would you define a system?
Yeah.
And how would you determine if that system is a good one or a bad one? For example, in the context of a visual identity system.
Okay, so let's start with the last one. I mean, for me, designing an identity system is always a proposal. What counts at the end is how the system reacts to reality, and you never can really know what is going to happen. So I think it's also it's a bit tricky that we are commissioned for designing a project, a system, and then it's going to be shot in space, and we are not there anymore when it's actually landing, and we don't know how it's going to land and how people are going to use it. So Interbrand, they suggested that we should have a brand cycle, and we should be consultants along the way, and we should always be there and adjust and adapt a bit like and react to all the emergent things that are happening with the identity. So this would be more realistic to do this, and this is how it's actually defined, if it's a bad one or a good one, if it works or if it doesn't work. So but yeah, right, I mean, you can do a lot of mistakes as well when you design identity systems. Like you can design a system that is too complex to understand, so the designers who are applying the system, they won't know what to do with it. It could be a bad system, could be a system that doesn't leave enough space or flexibility, so it cannot be adjusted to different messages or contexts, or it cannot evolve in the future, so it breaks and has to be redesigned. A bad system could be as well a system that is too flexible, so if you don't have enough constants, then you don't have identification, you don't have something identifiable anymore, it's not recognized anymore, it doesn't stand out. So all of these could be badly designed systems. Yeah, and the first question, can you remind me what was the first one?
How would you define a system?
Yeah. So in the model that I developed, I didn't talk much about my model, but based on this, on my dissertation, I made over 100 case studies, and I came to the conclusion there are two different types of systems. There are the systems based on form, which means that the identity is identified through a shape, recognized through shape, and the other one is one based on transformation. So it's not anymore the shape, but the process, the design process that is recognizable. So if you imagine like a filter, and you let this filter run on top of an image of an object, or of a photography, or of illustration, or typography, then in the end it's the filter that creates the constant, or the recognizability, the identification. So these are the two different kinds of systems, and the form-based system needs as well different kinds of subsystems. So you have elements which can convert into different kinds of components, which can be applied to different kinds of assets, which can be used in different applications or deliverables. This is basically how as well Figma works. And that's why it's not that hard anymore to explain all these kind of things, because we are using all the software that we're using. They work actually with form-based identities, and you have to use alternative software to make the transformation-based systems, but form-based systems are very much implemented in all the design software. And this hasn't been like this 10, 20 years ago. But yeah, that's quite natural now for us.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting about transformation-based ones is that it becomes even more unpredictable, the results, right? Because it could be different every single time, especially if you're using code. So
exactly, yeah.
I have the question I see here. It says from Max. I am not sure if it is a smart question, but I am curious. How do you see the difference between thinking in systems in the context of creating a brand, and the regular definition of branding that we have had for years? So cohesive color palette, shapes, design, and elements. So I guess what is the difference between, Yeah.
I think it's a very smart question, because I think it's a lot of times when you look behind the terms that we're using, you find the same thing. So I'm not using brands to describe what I'm doing, but I think a lot of people who call their work or the identities that they design brands, they are actually designing identity systems. And it's colors. I mean, if you look at the origin of the word identity, then it just means identitas or idem, which means doing the same thing over and over again. So you can use the same color over and over again. It will become something that you are recognized for, or the same shape, or the same typography, or the same lettering. So all of these things are still the same. What has changed, what dramatically has changed, is that we don't start with the logo, because the logo nowadays is actually not that important anymore. If you look at websites, it's sometimes just a home button in the upper right corner. The moment that you scroll down, if you don't have a sticky menu, then it's going to disappear. And things like typography, or the shapes of the buttons or forms, or the color becomes much more important. So, and then it's also, we have to design in a way that it's also something that is completely natural for us today, is something that works in all the different sizes and formats, digitally and in print. And so a lot of stuff that's called brand is actually a flexible identity. I'm not using brand because brand comes from branding, which means like putting your symbol on livestock. It's actually just a logocentric way of doing things, like claiming ownership. And I think that conceptually and also formally, we are beyond that. Like, if we create communities, if it's a real community or not just hidden consumers, if it's a real community, then they also have a say in what the brand is. So it's not anymore, you can't claim ownership to something, it's like the relationship to the things that surround us has changed through the way how we interact with each other. So I don't see branding as a term fitting anymore.
Yeah, you talked about systems literacy and terminology. I think educating or helping clients, for instance, understand this difference is really important, because the first thing they always ask for is a logo. And even I get confused between visual identity, visual systems, logo, brand mark. So I think that's a whole area that could be simplified in a way. And if there's more understanding of these terms or ways to talk about it, it could, like, clients will start seeing it as more than just, I need a logo, but I need a identity, or I need a,
Exactly. Yeah. But I think I think we're in a good way. I think most of people, they're starting to think in these terms. It's like, I think you don't really have much of a chance anymore not to think in systems, because what we do naturally is, like, when we post something, we are thinking about who might see this and where we post this, what kind of language should we use on LinkedIn, what kind of language should we use on Instagram. So we are not just doing one ad and then change the size and print it in a big poster, in a big banner or something. We are really carefully as well designing them to fit the context. And the more flexible our media is getting, the more systemically we will also be thinking. I think what is missing, and what I wanted to try to say with system literacy, is as well that we should look beyond the platforms that we are using, and we should think about, like, who is producing or developing these platforms, what kind of freedom do they give us or not, and also think beyond our design bubble and our design jobs. Like, this is what I would try to say, with not thinking just about the output, but also the outcome, the second order effects. So not just thinking about our design, but how our design is used, and what kind of effects it has. And you start becoming aware of these kind of things if you start thinking in these kind of system maps, and how one thing is connected to the other. And I'm saying this I mean, of course, you see a lot of negative things, but I'm also saying it in a positive, hopeful way, because sometimes you can feel powerless when you recognize the complexity of our world and how everything is connected. But when you realize that it is really connected, then you see that even a tiny thing can do quite a difference if you just keep at it and you do stuff with it. And yeah, so I'm also hopeful about this kind of view on the world.
Yeah, I think thinking of deliverables or the design we do as designers, not as these final products, but more as like these living things that other people can work with and use and develop further. That's a mindset, I think, that definitely helps to keep in mind. Like, how is someone else going to use this design?
Exactly. Yeah.
Two more questions I see here.
Okay.
One, is there any way of creating a system without coding in branding, for example?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when I was teaching at the KABK, they all knew how to code and how to do motion design, and they were so happy when I was just giving them paper, because they were longing for this kind of richer experience of being able to touch something that has a haptic, or something that also has a smell and a sound. So where they were designing their flexible systems, form-based or transformation-based, with paper. But I think choosing your tool is already, or language is already a design decision. So I think we should keep flexible as well in the way how we work. So a flexible system could be a sculpture, it could be a movie, it could be a building, it could be a neighborhood. It could be really literally anything. So yeah, definitely. I would never stick to just one thing. I think being flexible is makes it more fun.
Question on process. How do you expand on a concept without the visual output feeling repetitive? So that's kind of in line with the question of, do you ever find yourself getting stuck in like aesthetic repetition? Like if someone were to say it all looks the same, for example.
Yeah. I get the question. The thing is that you need repetition to create identity. So what I was saying before about identitas and idem, without repetition there's no constant. Without constant there's no identity. So you need repetition, but you also don't want to bore the people to death. You know, it's like I don't know, like telling the same people the same story over and over again. You would be so bored, right? So you need to find that right balance in between repetition and diversity. And this is something that you get a feeling for, and because we are still designing for humans, I would use as well our own human perception when we think that you lose recognition because it's not enough repetition, and also see when it's becoming too much repetition and becomes boring. And when you design the flexible systems, you should already like test different kinds of articulations of the system to see how different it can be. And then you still can curate and you can orchestrate and say, okay, this is too different, and then this is something that we're going to do in 2 years, but next year we should stick to this. So people have to learn our brand, and now I'm saying brand identity, and I think this is something that you have to see from moment to moment, what is too much repetition and what's too less repetition.
All right, I think that's all the questions we have. We're a little over, but I thought it would be nice to end with one more question for you.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually a two-part question. If you were not working in design systems, what kind of work would you be doing? And the other question is, if there's a project that you have not done to this point that you would love to still do, or a client you'd love to work with.
That's two very different questions, difficult questions, because I don't know. I have an answer. Okay, it's a difficult question because I knew quite early already that I wanted to become a designer, but with like 14, 16, when I made my first internship for school, I knew that I wanted to become a designer. But before, I really loved comics, graphic novels. So I know that you won't make any money with it, but this is something that apart from cooking, I love, and I can imagine to do again. It's so much work and you don't get any money, but I really love it. I mean, it's still. And the second question, what was it again?
If there's any projects you have not done yet that are on your radar.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't want to set myself goals. I mean, I'm doing exactly what I want to do at the moment, and I want I don't know, I want life to surprise me and see what's coming along my way. And it's probably going to be something that I'm going to enjoy, because I'm doing what I'm enjoying. So I don't have any specific goals.
All right. Well, I hope that involves coming to Mexico and
Yeah.
doing a
Great.
scrum event in person. That would be really nice.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
All right, Martin, thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you.
yeah, this video will be up for the next week or so. So yeah, we'll talk soon. And thanks
Great.
again.
Thanks so much.
All right. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.